It's a podcast for a Friday, the end of the week. Yours truly, Bob McCown, John Shannon over there. No, where the hell? Oh, there.
Yeah.
And
you again, Bob. You could not be a weatherman. You could not be a weatherman.
Dave Duvall, right?
Right. Get the name right. Bigger.
Backwards on the glass.
That's right. That's right.
I don't even know where everybody is on the screen.
Well, one's in Vegas and one's in Montreal.
Yeah. Oh, I know geographically where they are. I'm talking about on the screen. I mean, on my screen, PJ is in the lower left and Darren is in the lower right, but it may be backwards.
But people have forgotten who they are.
Wherever they are, don't worry about it.
People 7,242, 7,000. Oh, you guys made me lose track. I've got to start counting again.
So Mr. Millard is in Las Vegas and Mr. Stock is in suburban Montreal.
Greetings to both of you. How's everybody? Okay.
Busy counting.
This is a great year. Yeah, this is a great year.
Oh, yeah.
Not much going on in the world nowadays. Just
not much.
Thanks for squeezing us in on a Friday in November of 2020. You thought you were going to get through this without us, but
well, you're here on a big day, Millard, actually, because and now that you are a Las Vegas resident, you're probably paying significantly more attention to what's going on the political scene down there. And as we sit here, Mr. Biden appears to be on the verge of becoming the next president of the United States. What do you make of that?
Very significant, and Nevada being very involved and influential in the end result. It's been an education. We have moved our entire family here, and nothing like this election to really give the kids an understanding of the political landscape and geographically and understanding states. And that's with all due joking aside. It's been an education of learning where Pennsylvania is and where Georgia is and North Carolina and the like. So let's just hope that
your girls may know, but do you? That's the key.
No, I was going to say it's educational for the kids, but it's more educational for Millard himself.
I'm trying to figure out how many NHL teams are in each one of these states, and honestly, I can't get over how great John King is. That's my one takeaway from the whole thing.
I'm more confused. The only thing that I've learned is that we are all more confused now than before this whole thing started. What has been going on for the last little while in the States? And I'm happy we set Millard there. So, and it's
to help him out.
And it's
like the first guy to the Mars.
I know. I don't know. PJ, I used to see Millard try to do his expenses. I'm not sure he should be a numbers cruncher. I mean, I'm not sure. By the way, PJ, are you working out? Holy smokes.
No, black. We're black.
Giant. Black. No, but those, I mean, and smaller T-shirts, obviously.
Yeah. The secret is now, I used to be just a single arm drinker pre-COVID. And now with so much more time, I each arm gets a chat, and I do it all day now. So there's nothing else to do. So, yeah, my legs are skinny, though.
Well, the presumption is that's muscle. It just maybe you have fat arms. That may be the only thing.
I'm not telling you. I'm not telling you what it is.
The NBA has, I think, more or less decided December 22nd is the start date. What are we going to do with the National Hockey League? Anybody got any ideas as to what they're thinking and when they're going to drop the puck, as they say?
John does.
Well, I mean, let's face it. I think Gary is still going to try to push for early January. And because I, in my heart of hearts, knowing the way these people think, they don't want to give the NBA 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks of being the only winter sport, and I say winter viewing sport. They don't want to give them that spotlight. They don't want to give it to them by themselves. That's not the right message to be sending to sponsors. It's not the right message to be sending to your broadcast partners. It's not the right message to be sending to fans in markets that aren't as boisterous or as positive as some of the Canadian markets. I think Gary's still going to try to push for as early in January as possible.
PJ, what do you think? What do you hear?
I don't know if we're going to be able to convince the players. The whole big thing is the border, which is going to be a big issue. and it's been rumored a whole bunch of times that Canada might have their own division. But it's the bubble is how are they going to come up with an idea to create? I can't see the players doing what they did in Edmonton and Toronto, what they did for last season or what just finished. By the way, it was amazing how they pulled it off. Congrats to everyone involved. I just don't see them willing to make those sacrifices moving forward. Now, if the bubble is Canada and the bubble is the States, and they make smaller bubbles, potentially, but it's going to be hard to convince players to, I guess, bubble themselves. Like a lot of them had a hard time with the last one. It was great for the team that won it. That was worth all the sacrifices. But a lot of the other ones were kind of, why did we do this a little bit? So
you don't think you can't just put that to, and it's on the week that we're having, you can't just put that to losing. Everybody thought it was a waste of time if they didn't win.
Well, no, it became, is hockey a little bit life versus sport? And it's easy, right, John? It's all divided up, machine gun. It's all divided up into different tiers, right? The guys that have a lot of money, they don't need to come back for a little bit. They can sit at home and, especially ones that, the top teams.
They're losing a lot of money too, PJ.
They're losing money. Fine, they are. But at the same time, they have so much money that it's not really crazily affecting their life. They're millionaires over and over and over again. It's
not all of them, though.
That's what I'm saying. The bottom tier guys that are on year-to-year contracts that don't make a ton of money, those are the ones that really want to get back and play. So that's where you're kind of stuck in this a little bit. Like, I mean, Sidney Crosby, I'm not saying Sidney, I don't know anything about Sidney Crosby, but Sidney Crosby has enough money in the bank for the rest of his life. Yeah, he's doing okay. If for Sidney Crosby to miss a year or two, yes, it's going to hurt him in the pocketbook, but he also has enough in his bank account that is it really going to hurt him? And there's that tier of players versus the guys like myself who are almost paycheck to paycheck that they don't want to miss anything.
But how about Devon Taves? He finally gets his payday, and you're not going to play? And here's the other part, too. The summer, they didn't get paid. If they go into bubbles now or pods or whatever terminology you want to use, at least they're going to be making a paycheck. And we know that money doesn't buy happiness, but it makes for a much more tolerable depression.
Well, what we do know is that they got a bit of a paycheck at the end of last month. They got 8% of their salaries for the upcoming season, minus escrow, minus a holdback. But they did get a bit of a paycheck to get them through this strange time of year. But you know what? The other issue is going to be is what kind of paychecks are they going to get in the future too? How much are they going to get if it's just a 48-game season? I think that there's a real disagreement between the sides of whether they're going to get their full money or they're going to get a prorated portion. That's going to be another issue that I think will probably end up in court of some sort.
Well, on the normal year, the players would argue that, or it would be argued in general, that if you play 48 games, you get an appropriate percentage of your salary because the revenues are impacted. But we don't know.
That would be the league argument. That would be the league argument.
Okay, but the
players' argument is we signed a 4-year extension.
You got that right.
Right.
In order to make sure that we guarantee our dollars. That's why we did that.
What is the economic relevance to the teams in truth? The real economic relevance to the teams in playing 48 games versus 82 games. Now you're going to have to, maybe you're going to have to cut a check or do a deal with your sponsors. Maybe you're going to have to do a deal with your television networks and your broadcast partners. But you have less travel, you have less hotel costs. Your arenas are probably going to be empty or close to empty. So, I mean, there's some mitigating factors here.
Not enough, though.
I'm sure they're wading through.
A ton of factors. But it's funny. We talked about this, Bob, early on. I think maybe one of the first times we were together on the podcast was that what hockey is going to go through now, and to a lesser extent the NBA, but particularly hockey, is what Major League Baseball went through in spring training, when there was a huge fight between the players and the owners saying, we expect to get our full salaries. Yeah. Remember the guy that got pulled in Game 6, Blake Snelly, he wanted his full salary for the year. Didn't get it, but that's what he wanted, because he thought that that's what the contract he signed meant for him.
Well, he wanted that, and he wanted to stay in Game 6, so he's 0 for 2.
But you know what? I forgot he got doubly screwed this year, eh?
Well,
he should have just stayed out.
Well, and 0 for 3, then they lost the game, right?
Good point.
Well, the other thing we don't know. Sorry, Millard, I'll let you jump back in here. But the other thing we don't know is, are they going to go into bubbles or not? What we've seen since the NBA and NHL decided to go the routes that they went, we've seen Major League Baseball go through a season, and yes, they had problems, but in general, they made it through, and they got better as they worked through it. We have also now seen half an NFL season where, yes, there have been positive tests, but they continue to travel on a week-to-week basis. What do you do if you're the National Hockey League, Darren?
I think you start with pods, and not necessarily bubbles, but pods where you go in for a couple of weeks and it rotates. So the first 4 pods might be Edmonton with your All-Canadian division, and Carolina, Las Vegas, and St. Louis. And your divisions are sorted out that way. And you start with 2 weeks in, play a bunch of games, come out, see your family, go back for 2 weeks to 4 different pods. And I think that's the way you get through the first 20 games. And then you reevaluate, and hopefully you can have fans in the building of some regard, and you're able to play a schedule where teams are traveling to individual arenas on a more traditional setup. That's the way I see it going, but it gives you an opportunity to get the first 20 games under your belt and get some type of momentum.
We know you can play the games, PJ, but how many games can you play in 14 days? You certainly can play 7. Can you play 9?
I think the number's 8. I think the number's 8, Bob. Yeah. I think the number they're
3
talking
and 4.
About.
Yeah, 3 games, 4 nights is something. Just and keep rotating that through. You know what? If the guys they're getting paid. They get paid an amazing salary, and a game is, you bust your hump for a little bit. The thought always is, what's the risk of injury if I play too much or whatever. That's the one that gets taken into consideration by the PA side. You don't want to put the players at risk, but really, it's 2020, it's craziness. There are some sacrifices that have to be made by both sides. But I really like Darren's idea about and that's where I think it would be, because I don't think you can get them to stay forever in these bubble ideas or pods. So I do like that idea. And the one thing that hockey needs, and this is the concern, is they rely on gate more than any other sport, pretty much.
Sure.
So they have to find, I don't know how they're going to do this. And I don't know how many people the states are, and state to state, and Canada, we're all different as well, how there's a way that they can create a buzz in a certain town. I don't know. I don't know how they can do this, but
well, it's a good point. It's a good point because I'm sorry, because you're seeing, well, in the World Series and now in the National Football League, about 20%, most stadiums will let about 20%, give or take, in. If you do that in the National Hockey League, that's about 4,000 people per game. But that presumes that you're playing in your home arena. And you certainly can draw that many people. Even in Phoenix, they can draw that many people. But if you're playing in, like Edmonton, for example, if you've got all the Canadian teams playing in Edmonton, can you draw 4,000 people at noon for a game between Montreal and Ottawa? And then there's another game between Calgary and Toronto at 4 o'clock, and then there's another game at 8 o'clock between Edmonton and Winnipeg.
Well, but if you do that, who gets that money?
Well, there's another question.
So the other thing is, and the biggest difference really between allowing people in to watch games in baseball and football and hockey and basketball is indoors versus outdoors. Sure. And the science of COVID. So those are bigger issues. The NHL a long time ago now, I mean, it was, 7 or 8 months ago, they commissioned every team to go and do a social distancing map of your arena. If they allowed, with correct social distancing, 6 feet between people sitting down, how many people would be in arenas? The number was between 2,500 and 3,200 on average in every arena.
Okay.
That's just not enough. Eugene Melnick has said he thinks he could break even at 6,000 in Ottawa. I don't see how they're going to allow 6,000 in Ottawa. They won't. You can't even get 40 in a restaurant in Ottawa right now. And then I've talked to a couple of other teams that say break even for them is 10,000 people in the arena, and we are not going to see 10,000 people in an arena. I don't think until maybe October, and that's hopefully well after the vaccine is ready. So those are, I think those are numbers and issues that every team and both the NBA and the NHL have to deal with.
Can I just ask PJ, the idea that the NBA goes, where this conversation started, on December 22nd and gets up and running at the start of 2021, does that have any influence on the players to want to get back up and running and say, if they can do it, we should be doing it too?
Money, it's awful, but money always pushes me a little bit. You know, it's a lot of times at first you're like, oh, it's craziness. Let's wait. Let's not sacrifice the livelihood of everyone and make it look like people can't work and we're going to go and play hockey. And you're trying to have that mentality, and then you have to start paying for stuff. Mm-hmm. And then, like you guys said before, even that, as John said before, the 8% of the paycheck or whatever, there's a lot of them that start to be like, I need that 8%. You know, I need any of it. And that comes a little bit of a motivating factor. But I'm not sure if one would weigh on the other, the basketball versus the hockey. It's completely different mentality.
I'll watch it and I'll go, if LeBron's playing, why am I not watching Sid play?
I actually think that I actually think, and I haven't played hockey at that level. I haven't played hockey, period, actually.
You would be good in the net front presence.
You thinking? What about an active stick? What about an active stick?
Yes.
Active stick, yeah. But I think that pressure is more on the corporate side. I really do. I think that's more on Scotiabank, who have invested a lot of money in hockey. I think there's pressure from Comcast, who have the rights in the United States, on Rogers in Canada. I think those are the people that are going to be saying, hey, if the NBA is going, why isn't the NHL going? And I do think that Gary would understand that. I think Gary realizes that right away, and that's why he's always picked that January 1st date. The other one is, owners, I think owners are kind of pushing back, saying, listen, we want to play. We don't want to be out of pocket very much as we have to be, which is why they want February 1st, based on the fact that they think that's 5 or 6 weeks closer to being able to put people in the seats, that's where a lot of their local revenue is generated.
And when it comes to the players, back to the players, they're all pretty simple. You know, I joke about the money, which is an issue, but the hockey players, you just tell them where to go, they'll go. There won't be a lot of pushback, especially from the bottom half. It's that top half a little that might be, a little hesitant, but you just tell them what they have to do, they'll go do it. So that's...
Yeah, the interesting thing about that, PJ, is in the return to play committee the last time, in the summer, there were 5 players. There were 5 players involved. Now, the return to play committee is going to have 13.
You don't have enough fingers.
Well, I have to use toes too.
Yeah.
Anyway, so from that perspective, is that an indication that the players want to be more involved because they didn't like what happened in the bubbles, or that they want to be able to control their own fates, or they've had a lot of time to think and they just want to make sure it gets done right? I mean, that to me is an interesting factor in the players making sure that they have enough say on how the next level of return to play is designed.
Are you guys convinced that we're going to play?
No,
that's
I'm not.
my thing. No, I agree with you. I don't know.
Oh, I am.
I think we'll play too, but
I've talked to enough people.
Well, I will say this much. Well, I'm not convinced they're going to play. I'm not sure they should play. But I think it would be wise, and they probably are, trying to think of something a lot more outside the box than what the four of us have contemplated here, which is some kind of a regular season with then some kind of a playoff format. If you think about all the things that are important in our society right now, the Canadian border technically is closed, so you can't. They don't want to bring teams across the border. That's why we're talking about a Canadian division. Travel is an issue, both from an economic standpoint and from a risk standpoint. So how about this? And this is really off the top of my head. What about taking all 30? Well, there aren't 32 yet, are there?
No, 31 right now.
Well, let's speed up Seattle and get it to 32. And they've got a month, so hurry up.
We can do that. We can do that.
Stock, you may have to put the skates back on.
Yeah, we can do it.
So, and Millard, you'll be the goaltender.
Oh,
it's
my!
Not that far from Vegas to Seattle.
But what will your mask look like?
Goals will be up.
That's right.
Way
goals.
up.
Well, no, not if PJ's shooting.
Huge.
All right, so let me go down this road one for a second here. Forget a regular season. What if you played a double knockout kind of playoff round? So it becomes like the NCAA tournament, but with a double knockout. So you play a best 4 out of 7 series against some other team. You play all the games in the home arena of the higher seed, which is sort of what happened in baseball. And then you proceed from there. So it becomes one elongated playoff series rather than a smaller regular season to get to the playoffs. Thoughts?
I don't think there's any chance of it happening, but I love the idea. Like it's
it
really neat idea.
It doesn't satisfy the league's corporate partners. It doesn't.
Why?
Because what you need is volume. You need.
Well, but let's think, John. Just a sec. Let's think about how many games actually would be played. You'll have every series would be 4 out of 7. Some will go 4, of course. Some will go 7. You start adding it up. You're probably in around the right number of games, and in terms of audience, don't you think that this playoff kind of format draws a bigger television audience than a bunch of regular season games?
Well, I mean, in the end, if it's a double knockout elimination round robin, it is the regular season. So I think,
it's not a round robin; it's a double knockout.
Wow.
You lose the first round, you get to go into the B pool, and at the end, somebody from the B pool plays the winner of the A pool. Stock is sitting there like completely puzzled by this.
No,
I'm saying so you could play 8 games and be done. Is that what you're trying to say?
Theoretically.
So this
theory.
is a concern theory. So, and let's just take Ottawa for example. One of the issues with Ottawa is they haven't played it for a year by the time hockey comes back. So that's a lot on the players that haven't played. And now they could be playing 8 games. Ottawa, like let's say where they are, let's say it's 9. Let's say they push a couple series. Now they're done.
Very generous of you.
Yeah. You gave them a game.
Now they're done for another who knows how long.
8 months.
That'll be a tough convincing factor for those teams. They want to try and get back on the ice. No, they even asked for training camps for the 7 teams that have been eliminated early. If by the way, I didn't have to take my shoes off for that one. They want to get back and get a training camp before the other teams get a training camp, only because they've been doing nothing. So
play better. That's the answer to that.
That's it.
Yeah.
Over?
Yeah, play better, and then you get more games.
Yeah,
Well, it's hard. It's hard.
You know what? But I'm not sure you would be a very good commissioner, Bob. I really am not. I'm not sure. I'm
not applying for the job. I'm just trying to fix everything that's wrong with the world.
But the counter argument to this is that teams would want to play. Like PJ said, teams don't want to come back for 8 games. Well, then we get back to the whole argument of, should teams be wanting to play? Will there be a desire to play? And that sort of strengthens that argument as the NBA starts.
I think
Stock was arguing. Stock was arguing
play,
earlier that guys may not want to play because they got so much money. I'm saying here's a whack of dough. If you only play 8 games, you'll have a nice vacation.
No, I'm not saying. I'm using that as like, I'm just saying there are some that could easily say the money thing is, like I also said, hockey players are simple. You tell them where to go, they're going to go. Yeah. And I'm just adding a layer to the argument of, is it really worth it? So let's say a team like an Ottawa Senators or Detroit, their superstars know they're not going to win anything. So I know Montreal was 24th and they were able to beat a 5th seed, even though they were where they sat during the regular season. And in the bubble, some of those teams were at the bottom knew they weren't going to really have a chance to win anything. So they were kind of, why are we kind of here thing. And the money factor is something that helped influence it, making a solid cap. So that's kind of, and their escrow being lowered over time. So that was why they did it as an investment. Moving forward, it's going to be a little bit different because they already got the solid cap. They got the numbers about the escrow. They got the extension. But now you're those bottom teams. And now how do you convince them to come back? And that's kind of one of the,
I tell you what, you need, from a revenue perspective, you need to get around 600 to 700 games to be played on a local and national sponsorship level on a network.
John, not
no, you need, Bob. This to PJ's point. To PJ's point about Ottawa getting 9 games. That's a typical answer from a guy in Montreal. That I mean, from that perspective, you need to be able to say to Ottawa, you're going to play 48 games. And
I don't understand why.
Because in the end, Bob, and we saw this with the format that existed in the bubbles, was there is a level of belief from the players too that you don't want to compromise the integrity of winning the Stanley Cup.
That ship has sailed.
No, it hasn't, Bob.
No, it hasn't.
No, it hasn't,
sure
Bob.
You had a
that's one of the reasons
last year. You didn't have home ice advantage through the postseason.
But you still had to win 4 7-game series to win the Stanley Cup. So there's no asterisk.
Baseball just played a 60-game schedule, and the Dodgers beat Tampa Bay, the 2 best teams during the regular season in their respective leagues. Are you putting an asterisk on that baseball season?
No, because they didn't compromise the actual playoffs. In fact, they expanded the playoffs.
Of course they did. They expanded them.
As you loved. But that expanding the playoffs, I mean, there's no asterisk in 1995 when the Devils won the Stanley Cup. They won it on a 48-game schedule. There's no asterisk there. There's no asterisk in 2013 when Chicago won it after a 48-game schedule because they didn't compromise the integrity of the playoffs. So so you can do whatever you want before you're going to have the playoffs, but they have to find a way to create a proper seating. You have to do what PJ says. You can't just play 9 games and go home. So
if you have to have a regular season, guys, what's the minimum number of games you can have in a regular season?
I just said 48. 48.
I'm with Johnny. Hold on a second. Okay, there's no asterisks. I'm stuck with Bob on this one a little. Okay. All these records that have been smashed, okay, because of the playoffs, because they had an extended playoffs,
right?
Okay, right. So there's that window of games. They didn't want to count them as regular season games. They called them play-in games, but they're actually playoff games. So those records of all these amazing careers of players that have been in the history books have all been erased because we have these extended games where players went in and fluffed up all the stats because they played more games. If you're telling me there shouldn't be a little bit of an asterisk besides that, but PJ,
based on that, how do you compare Rocket Richard scoring 50 goals in 50 games when the regular season was only 50 games in the late 40s, versus when it was 84 games for 5 years in a row. I mean, so individual statistics are different than team statistics. I understand what you're saying. You can't compare, the greatest goal scorer in modern history, Wayne Gretzky, and his numbers individually versus Rocket Richard's based on playoff games. Rocket Richard, there are years they only played 8 playoff games and won the Stanley Cup.
Yep.
So the individual things are one thing. It's the team sport. It's a team sport. Those are the things you can't compromise.
When do you guys think we will start, if you had to predict?
I don't have any idea. I'll take the first shot at it. I have no idea when they're going to start. If I was them, I want to start as soon as possible, and I would, at the very least, I would want to have games on New Year's Eve, New Year's Day.
I'm with totally. And you got to make a splash. You got to find a way to get people back into it. I think what hurt hockey a little bit when they did come back and the games were in the bubbles, they didn't have the sound put in a little. It just did not seem like it wasn't entertaining. It just kind of seemed blah. You had players coming out and actually, which moving forward, the league should talk to the players and they should only be promoting the sport. They should not say that this is, Jonathan Drouin from the Montreal Canadiens coming out and saying that there's more atmosphere at my kid's peewee game. So I think they have to find a way to create a wow. The players are going to play, but they have to get us as fans back into it as well. So I think those dates are great. I grew up watching college football. The big game on January 1. That's a great date. It's a holiday that everyone's going to be getting together and kind of cheersing 2020's over. We're moving forward. They have to make a splash with that date, and I don't know how they want to do it, but I like that date moving forward.
Well, I think that the answer is that the league wants to go as soon as possible after January 1st, but I think realistically, they're better off in February. Do a 48 games. Because I think in the end, Bob, and it's a little bit to PJ's point, I want the second half of the season to have fans in the building, and I've got to feel and we've got to think, no guarantees, that by March or April we're going to be allowing people indoors to go into arenas. And so, like the owners, I'm suggesting that you push it as far as you can without compromising everything, to make sure that you have as many home games with people, some level of people in the seats. And
this is great because Millard hasn't spoken a bit. So John,
well, no, he ended up being the host. He asked the question. He ended up being the host. He couldn't resist.
So I think the biggest concern is, I'm with you a little bit on pushing it, as you talked about the people in the seats, but the biggest thing is hopefully we have whatever kind of a cure or whatever, I don't know, but we can't. We're thinking everything should be better by September, October of the following year. We can't sacrifice the following 82 game season. So
I agree with you. Well, the other aspect, the other thing is to put in mind is the Tokyo Olympics, which start in mid-July. And so that probably gives you some level, in my opinion, of an end date, because CBC, Rogers, TSN in Canada all carry summer games. NBC on all its family of networks carry the summer games if they occur. And it sounds like the AOC is going to be adamant that they're going to occur. So then you have basically January to mid-July as your window for television exposure. And so that creates another dilemma for you. And I think that's one of the reasons why Bettman has pushed early January to start the season. But I think that there's enough pushback from owners around the league, including Bill Foley in Vegas, who said it on a radio show, that says, February 1st is the way we're going to go. So that's how I just see it.
I'm going third week of January. That's when we're going to start. Sort of right in between you guys.
Thanks, Darren. You can go back to sleep.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for helping out.
Yeah.
Thank you. What's the Swedish jersey you got going up there behind you?
He bought it.
Nick Backstrom.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I'm big in Sweden.
Bam, bam.
I'm big on my Swedes.
To Johnny's point, and let's say combining all of that and going back to Bob's question early, how many games can you get in? The PA will have an idea of how many games we can play within a certain amount of time. So that's going to have to be taken into consideration. John mentioned the Olympics is a great point because they want nothing but Olympics on their airwaves. So hockey's going to have to be finished there, which actually gives a great, summer for hockey to get ready for the September-October season, which therefore comes the math. We both agreed on 48, or we all said 48. That number might have to go down to 42, maybe, or what is the right number if you want to get all that into place and get playoffs started like they normally always do first week of April, because we want the playoffs.
Yeah.
How important is the season compared to the playoffs?
Well, I mean, but if you look back, 48 game schedule, you basically have, I think, until the 15th of July to give out the Stanley Cup. So you're buying yourself 5 more weeks of time. We all know that, and the ratings weren't spectacular, but we all know now that people will watch hockey in the summertime. And so
people will watch anything.
Right now they will.
If you put it on, but
right now they will. Yeah, but you have to. I think you have to be ready for you finish by the middle of July, because you still need a draft, and you need an expansion draft too for that Seattle team that's supposed to start in October. And that's the other thing to mention is that it's the only money that's going to come in next year for the owners, possibly, is the expansion dollars from the Seattle franchise. There are going to be checks written by David Bonderman and the people in Seattle.
I don't care.
No, but it puts money in the pockets of some owners that right now don't have any money, Bob.
Well, poor babies. They should sell the franchise. I'm sure they have plenty of doing.
Now's not a good time. You don't sell when the market's low.
Yeah, you don't go. Bob, you know better than anybody.
You want me to have sympathy for NHL team owners?
You are definitely not. You are definitely not being commissioner now. I thought you wanted to be
I didn't apply for the freaking job. Millard.
We can always talk about 48 game schedule, 52 game schedule. There's no guarantee that everybody plays the same number of games, as we just saw in baseball.
No, I really don't care who plays how many games. Well, let me ask you this, I'm not suggesting this. I'm asking the question. We all, as fans of sports, want and expect, or we think we want and expect, there to be a season. Mm-hmm. But we have gone through the last 8 months, 9 months, whatever it is, of a life that is completely different than anything we could possibly have imagined. What is the actual downside in the NHL, NBA, not playing, not saying we will abort this year, we will come back in September, that is our plan, at a time when we believe there is a great likelihood that a vaccine will have been developed and a significant number of the population will have been able to access the vaccine. And hopefully life is, if not normal, then certainly a lot closer to normal. What's the downside in doing that, Darren?
I'll give you 2 words: relevancy and money. And I'm not sure.
That's 3 words.
3 words.
Sorry.
Well, okay.
Relevancy, money. And I'm not sure which one's more important and more valuable.
Relevancy, I don't think relevancy is a problem. I think it's all based on revenue. And what we're talking about, if there's no season, no playoffs, and by the way, if they could do playoffs this year in a bubble, they can do playoffs next year in a bubble for the short term. But we're talking probably, and Bob, how owners work and leagues work. They don't talk about actual cash. They talk about the money they think they should make and the future revenue stream.
Okay, so let me ask you a question.
$4 billion. $4 billion.
Well,
Well, hold on a second. How many teams made money this past season?
I'm still going through the votes here.
I don't think
can't,
they
I
know.
don't know.
I don't think they know.
I think they know, and I don't think it was one.
I don't think it was
they
one.
all lost
I could
money.
tell. I don't know hockey.
No.
I don't know hockey, but I can tell you this: football, and I'm sorry, I'm just a comparison, which is a money-making machine every year.
Yeah, it's a TV money-making machine, though, PJ.
Fair, I agree.
That's right.
I agree, but they're getting crushed. So hockey,
crushed. They're getting crushed. They're not losing money. They're not losing money.
They're losing. Salary cap's going to go down next year. Every team
no. Salary cap going down doesn't mean they're losing money, though.
The owners, they're all going to lose. All the teams will lose about $100 million. That's what I've been told. So think of this.
I don't believe
Okay, let's just go to hockey. And to Bob's point before about and if there is no hockey, I think that you look at what's kind of hurting the hockey world and why people don't watch. We're not in bars cheering it on. We're not at work talking about it. So that also, we used to go, I have to watch this game because I heard about this, I heard about that, or it's in the bar. You can't get into the fever of the playoffs. We couldn't do any of that. So it kind of, it just kind of lost its flavor. So people weren't really watching it all that much. If we lose a year to it, how much does it affect people moving forward? Hockey fans are always going to come back. It's those fans that are stuck in the middle, the young kids that are, hockey, basketball's on fire right now in Canada. And why? Because the Raptors. Canadians hockey teams haven't been winning. The younger kids are now following basketball or other sports. If we take a year off hockey, I think it is the most delicate sport compared to the others because it's not as much of a highlight reel sport. I think it can hurt the game.
There's some truth.
So relevancy goes back to relevancy.
No, I think there's some truth to that, but I think from an economic perspective, what I didn't really get a chance to finish. The perspective I'm offering is if you didn't play this year, you reduce your losses dramatically. Players do not get paid. No, you don't have the revenue from your sponsorship or television contracts, but you merely extend them for another year. So you're not eliminating that revenue, you're just delaying that revenue. And I think, are there a few teams that actually made money?
Yes.
Sure.
Well, they made money because they got how many games in? 70 games in of the regular season.
35 home,
How many teams would you say will make money this year if there are no fans in the building?
None.
That's the point. And a bunch of them will lose their shirts. And if you don't have a season, if you don't try and jump through all these hoops that we're talking about just to play, to say you played, when there's no economic reason to play, when, as PJ said earlier, there are a lot of players probably who don't want to go into a bubble again and maybe don't mind taking another year off. I think it's something that has to be considered. I don't think it will be considered. I don't think the National Hockey League or any other league wants to even think about the notion of doing this. But is there some wisdom in it? Maybe. No, John?
Playing, John, is an investment.
There is, there are going to teams that actually lose less without revenue sharing. If they don't play, there's going to be a handful of teams.
Oh no, there'll be a lot because they won't have the expenses of player movement, hotel,
you're
salaries.
Right. That's around $85 to $90 million. They won't have those. They won't have those expenses. You're not wrong. The problem becomes is not at the team level near as much as at the league level, where this is where there has been a giant shift in hockey in the last 7 to 10 years. Is that the amount of money that used to be driven by the league was in the 15 or 20 or 25 percentile. Now it is more than half because of the way that the league is constructed and the permissions that the owners have given Gary to drive revenue. And so that's why there was a bubble season, because there's enough revenue in a lot of people's opinions at the league level in order to play. And you combine that with Daren's relevancy, then there's going to be reasons to want to play the game. They don't want to, they don't want to interrupt. They don't want to interrupt another year. And the bubble year the bubbles were proof of that. And I think that's why we're going to end up with a season of some sort and a shortened season.
It also, like, you went through all this trial and tribulation and challenge of playing in a bubble and crowning a Stanley Cup champion in the midst of the pandemic. You kind of lose that momentum. Like, why would you do all that and then not play?
Right.
Well, and partly because, as you well know, in Las Vegas, the pandemic is way worse now than it was back then.
Oh, be quiet. It's fine. I'm fine. It's all good.
You're fine. Yeah, check the numbers.
He's locked up in his room. He's got his little jerseys wrapped around him. He's
got 100,000 people. Yeah, 100,000 people a day catching this stuff. We've had record numbers the last week here in Toronto, and now they're talking about reopening restaurants. We don't know how to deal with this. We don't know what the right answer is.
No, we do know how to deal with it. We just don't want to.
We don't want to, and I am not sitting here and suggesting that the NHL not have a season, but I am saying it is something that should be thought about. It is, really all you're doing is you're saying, instead of starting in February, we're going to start up again in September.
Mm-hmm. It has, Bob. I mean, I think that's the one thing you'll have to give credit of that inner cabinet of Bettmans, whether that's the 10 guys on the executive committee or the guys like.
And
Daly.
What do you think the chances are that they'll take that option, John?
I think it's based on the numbers, Bob. It's based on the numbers.
No chance.
If the second wave continues to grow as badly as it has, then I think it's something they're going to have to consider.
I'd be very surprised. But
time is your enemy, right?
Time is your enemy?
Yeah, because you can't push it back indefinitely.
No,
we don't think.
Yeah.
I think hockey players also look at these optics way more differently than the other sports. I do think so. And that's kind of what I was saying at the beginning. I think, that's why some of them had a hard time coming back and playing, especially we talk. I think the mentality in the States versus the mentality in Canada is a lot different. And
yes.
a lot of the players in the league are Canadian or for whatever, and they didn't think it was right to come back and play. And when you think of it, they came back and played, and like I said, we compared it to losing, to come back to play. Kind of for what? Yeah, the team that won their Stanley Cup champs and the teams that had success, but there's a whole bunch of other ones that kind of, did we really come back for this? And so that's going to be the optics of all of this, as Bob mentioned. I mean, the numbers are crazy, and everything's skyrocketing. No one knows. You can blame on whoever you want, but at the end of the day, no one knows how to slow this down or stop it. So until they find somewhat of a way, I can see the players just saying, I just don't think it's right. Besides the guys the monetary part of it, we need some money. It doesn't look right. So that's a concern.
You have to wonder if the season does start in January, how many opt-outs do we see? How many guys, I assume, at the top end of the salary scale?
No, like some at least. Depends on what the format is, I think.
But you're also being paid this time.
Correct.
And you weren't being paid in the summer.
But you don't get paid for playoffs anyway.
I know, but I think it would
have been easier for players last year to walk away because basically it was all playoffs, right?
Right. They'd already received most of their paychecks. Yeah.
Well, on one hand, I could say that Sportsnet would not be happy if there was no hockey. Then again, take a look at the four of us. Why should we give a crap about what they think or what happens?
I like PJ's little giggle there.
That only took about 42 minutes. So
well, you knew it had to come.
Yeah. Is there a secret meeting that I'm missing out on? That
you're in
everybody's having. Oh, okay.
You're in it right now.
That's great. We're gonna sell decoder rings next week, so it'll be great.
So they're not going to be happy. But on the other hand, here's the other hand. They're getting their ass kicked economically with this, and it's not going to be any better if they play a season this year. If you extended Sportsnet's NHL contract to year 13, for example, and said, don't pay anything this year, we'll just extend it to year 13, they'd scratch their chin a couple of times and go, that's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all. So,
yeah, but I can tell you right now that NBC would jump at that opportunity in the United States, and because there's a real expectation that the next deal in the United States that's going to come up, if you rolled over NBC for a year to 200, which they get $200 million, there's an expectation that rollover a year would have been $600 to $800 million for television revenue.
Well, maybe, but also the contemplation was that ESPN was going to be back in the mix on that, and they just laid off 500 people.
Yeah, but you can always
they're still buying rights fees.
You can
I give you that, but
how you produce what the biggest issue, and we saw it during both NBA and NHL. We saw it in Major League Baseball. It's not necessarily producing content; it's how you produce content. That is going to change forever, based on what's happened in COVID.
Yeah, spoken as a true producer.
Yeah, the four of us will be calling games from this
setup
here.
We're going to be on our we're going to be on our broadcast booths right now.
Yeah.
Who cares? The amount of people watch.
Yeah.
They got the same numbers.
Oh, Pete.
Well, that's a compliment to the podcast.
Yeah. No, I'm like saying we can pull from. We got Vegas. That's about it. The rest of it.
Do you care that whether the broadcasters are there or not? I mean, at the end of the day, if you're sitting in front of your television set, does it even occur to you that they may or may not be in the stadium?
One of the great broadcasters of our time, who just retired, covered every game of the Stanley Cup playoffs from his house in Marysville, Michigan, in Mike Emmerich. Every game, and did a really good job.
And I don't think the audience cared.
I do. But I'm
selfish. You want the per diem and to go out for dinner the night before.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
But now all the restaurants are closed anyway, so you can't go anywhere.
Not in Vegas.
Not in Vegas.
No, they're ignoring the fact that there's a pandemic on.
Yeah, they're still counting. So
they're not counting money though. Gentlemen, we have gone much longer than we usually do, and really what that speaks to is not necessarily the intellect of this conversation, but the verbosity of the four people involved.
Or the friendships.
Hold on.
Oh, no, it was all about,
PJ,
being verbose.
PJ, do you know what verbosity means?
I actually quickly looked down and tried typing it into. I couldn't spell it. I got to. Starts with a V, right? Not an F.
It means I couldn't shut you three up.
It's a silent H and then a V.
This is so good. We should do a Saturday show at 5:00. What do you think, Peach?
No, it's been
Saturday
done.
at 5?
Saturday at 5.
He's talking about the show you used to do. Saturday at 5.
I was going to say, because my arms are in full effect Saturday by 5:00.
And it's not from running.
Pandemic life.
Well, that answers the question of whether
Sprinter's arms.
It answers the question of whether the effects of a concussion wear off in time. Apparently, they don't for stock.
It's not a concussion. It's called a hangover.
That's 4 syllables. When Shirley Najak was our producer at Hockey Night in Canada, or the big boss, he said no words bigger than marmalade. So that's 3.
Really? Shirley Najak told him that? Told you that?
Yeah, no words bigger than marmalade.
Oh, really? Huh? Yeah. Wonder where he learned it.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, of course he's going to take credit for it. You know that.
Hey.
Let's go and enjoy the rest of the day. We love you, and thanks a lot for taking time. And we'll if with your permission, we'll gather this group again.
Please.
Not too long down the road. Good to see you guys.
Secret handshakes.
That'll do it for the podcast. We'll see you on Monday. Bye-bye.